So, in life, there are moments when you stop and ask yourself, how did I get here? Like, why am I standing here? Well, this is definitely one of those moments for me, and I find myself going back to beginning, back to my roots. I was born to incredible parents, amazing parents who served as doctors in the Indian Army. I was the firstborn, and as far back as I can remember, I made my parents very proud and happy 99% of the time. Okay, slight exaggeration of personal achievements are allowed from time to time. Don't you think my brother was born a few years later, and even then nothing changed for me? We were both given equal opportunities, and I want to emphasize this. I want to really emphasize this for you because I don't think a lot of people might understand that being equal might seem very normal. But where I come from, India, and a lot of developing countries around the world, more often than not, this is an exception. It's actually a privilege. My first experience of the glaring disparity between boys and girls came at a very, very young age. I grew up in a middle-class family with extremely philanthropic parents who constantly reminded me that my brother how lucky we were and how giving back to those who were less fortunate was not a choice. It was a way of life. Simple. I was 7 or 8 years old when my parents started talking me on these visits in traveling clinic to developing communities around and villages around the city that we lived in, Baltimore. Really, we were packed into this ambulance and my parents were provided free medical care to people who couldn't afford it. My job at the age of 8 was assistant pharmacist. So, I would count all the medicines, put them in an envelope and give it out to patients, and I really took my job very seriously. But the more I went on these expeditions, the more I began to notice that simplest things that distinguished a boy from a girl or a man from a woman. For example, girls were pulled out of school when they hit puberty, because they were considered ready for marriage and babies. That's 12 and 13 while boys still enjoyed their childhood. Our basic human rights such as health care were denied just because they were women. Let's call this whole experience trigger number 1 for me. Last forward a few years and many triggers in between. Like a producer-director, for example, early on in my career, I must have been about 18 or 19 telling me that if I didn't agree to the ridiculous term or painfully low salary in his movie, that he would just replace me because girls are replaceable in the entertainment business. But I think what really moved the needle for me and ultimately led me to create the Foundation for Health and Education around the same time, partner with UNICEF, was an encounter with my housekeeper's daughter about 12 years ago. I came home from set early one day and she was sitting in my library reading a book, and she must have been 8 or 9 years old, and I knew she loved reading. So I asked her, I was like, it's weekday. Why aren't you in school? And she said, oh, I don't go to school anymore. So I went and asked her mother, and I said, why isn't she in school? And her mom said that her family couldn't afford to send her and her brothers to school, so they chose the boys. The reason she would eventually get married and it would be a waste of money. I was completely blown and it shook me to my core. Eventually, I decided to cover the cost of her education so that he could continue to learn because education is a basic human right. thanks and a huge necessity, especially today. From the point on, I was determined to make a difference in as many children's lives as I could in whatever big or small way that I could contribute. There's a really beautiful quote that I read recently, and I think it's absolutely appropriate to explain what I'm trying to say today. The hand that rocks the cradle, the procreator, the mother of tomorrow. A woman shapes the destiny of civilization, such as the tragic irony of fate that a beautiful creation such as a girl child is today one of the greatest concerns facing humanity. Girls have the power of change the world. It is a fact, and yet today girls are more likely than boys never to set foot in a classroom. Despite all the efforts and progress made over the last 2 decades, more than I am just gonna give you a stat, more than 15 million girls of primary school age will never learn how to read or write compared to 10 million boys primary school. It's the beginning of our future. Over the last 11 years, I have witnessed firsthand the incredible work that UNICEF does for children around the world, especially victims and survivors of child marriage, displacement, war, sexual violence. But there is still so much work to do, and for me that is the fuel to my fire. The reason I am so committed to this cause, and that is where my passion stems from, because I know that a girl's education not just empowers families but communities and economics a result of her education. We all do better. It's just as simple as that, as entertainers and influencers sitting in this room. I feel that is our social responsibility to be for the voiceless, which is why I applaud each and every woman in this room for being such a badass, for using your platform and your voice to contribute to change, and for ensuring that there is not even one lost generation as long as we are alive.
I love people of action. I weary of people who get in your face and tell you what all they're doing and actually doing nothing at all. In my life, results count. I'm impressed by results. Don't tell me what you went through. Tell me you got it done. Not hearers of the word only, but doers of the word. God blesses what you do. And see, when you walk with somebody who is a person of action, and you walk with a do-it man, that spirit will leak out on you. Oh, look at somebody and say, do it. Do it. Do it. Don't dream about it. Don't wish for it. Don't hope for it. Don't long for it. Don't cry about it. Get up and do it. Do it with all of your might and with all of your strength and with all of your passion. Somebody holler, do it! I know you've been through hell. I know you had to go through high water. Didn't think you could swim through it. But I also know there's a reason that you went through everything you went through. After this, you're going to come into your promised land. You're going to see why you had to go through this to get what God is about to do in your life. He didn't take you through that wilderness for nothing. Something good is going to come out of this. You can't let your past destroy your future. You got to get rid of the stuff behind you so you can lay hold to the stuff that's before you. Look at somebody and say, get it off you. I don't know who I'm preaching to, but whoever it is, you're getting ready to go to the next level. You're getting ready to go into a brand new dimension of thinking and living and breathing. And a whole lot of things had to change in your life. But the Lord said, after this, get ready, get ready. Some of you have been standing waiting on God to help you. You better go ahead. Slap somebody and say, do it. You've been praying about it, but it's time to do it. You've been waiting on a sign, but it's time to do it. You've been waiting on God to respond, but he already gave you the answer. Do it.
Give it everything you got. Put your heart in it. Most people, when they're working on dreams, they don't give it everything they have. all you can do is all you can do. And all you can do is enough. Most people don't do all they can do. Most people go through life holding back. Answer your calling. Whatever you're called to do, don't count yourself out. Don't say, I can't do that. Many of us go through life saying no, and you don't even know what you're saying no to. You don't know what you cannot do if you're not willing to challenge yourself. Whatever it is that you don't know how to do right now, you can learn. I did not know how to speak for major corporations. I didn't know how to do that. But I decided to become a student. If you do your research, if you do your homework, if you make the commitment that I'm going to learn, when you look at what do I have going for me and drop your buckets where you are, decide I'm going to work and get myself together. A guy named Jim Rohn said, if you develop your gifts will take you places that you'll never begin to imagine.
I mean, how bad do you want your goal right now? I think there's a lot of people in the world today, because it's a really niche thing to talk about, I want this, this is my outcome, this is my goal. Like, how bad do you want? Do you want as bad as breathing? Do you want it as bad as anything you ever wanted in your life? And if you calibrate it at the highest enough levels, what I found is the people that are the hungriest, they find a way. When you know why you want something, when it's desperation, the power of being desperate is something that most people avoid. They think desperation is a weakness. And I'm here to tell you, desperation is one of the most powerful emotions you could possibly possess, because when you're desperate, you find reserves and reservoirs of ideas, talents, and a strength that you don't know you have when you find yourself in a desperate situation. So ironically, the one thing most people avoid in their life, hunger, which is caused by being desperate. When you're starving, you become desperate. Think of somebody who's starving on the street. How resourceful would you get if your children were literally starving and you had to feed them? So the number one thing we need more than anything to win is hunger, which comes from a state of desperation. Yet we're constantly trying to comfort ourselves in the real world to avoid the state of being desperate. And I'm telling you that I think you need to embrace desperation again in your life. Like, do you want it so bad that you're desperate for it? All of the silly things that happen that we let slow us down is related to our lack of hunger and desperation. And so I'm here to ask you, how desperate are you for what you want? Like, here's what I think. I think most people would just like their goals. They'd like their outcome. They're not hungry for them. They're not starving for it. They're not desperate for it. But when you start to feel that desperation, it's one of the most powerful emotions in the world, because you become so resourceful, you become so determined, and all the noise goes away. See, all of these objections, all of these fears, all of these old stories you tell yourself, all the excuses that you're making, and I love you, so I'm saying this to you, are all going back to a lack of real hunger, real desire, real desperation. Because real desperation is beautiful. The most alive you'll ever feel, ironically, is when you're the most desperate. You talk to people who are the closest to death in an accident, and they'll tell you, ironically, it was the most alive I've ever felt. Because you're so desperate to survive. You're so desperate to get through it. Yet in life, we try to avoid this all the time. And I'm here to tell you, embrace the desperation. Seek the desperation. Show me somebody hungry. I'll take hunger and desire over IQ, over knowledge, over skills every day of the week. Because I can teach you skills. I can teach you the lessons. I can teach you the words. But I can't give you heart. I can't give you hunger. I can't give you desire. I can't give you the courage to be desperate. Because desperate people look a little funny. Desperate people don't fit in. Desperate people stand out. You see someone desperate, you're like, whoa, what's going on with them? Desperate people get criticism. And most people would rather not stand out. They'd rather not leave the crowd. They'd rather not take the criticism. They'd rather not take the heat. So most people say, I'd love to be a millionaire. I'd love to win. I'd love my dream relationship. I'd love the best body I could have. I'd love to be happier, but I don't want to look bad doing it. I don't want to seem desperate. I don't want to seem different. I don't want to step out of the crowd. And as long as you're one of those people who won't step out, who won't look a little bit funny, who worries more about what other people think about them than truly winning, You're always going to be held back. What's your level of real hunger? What's your level of real desperation? How bad do you really want it? Or would you just like it? Do you need it like you need to breathe? Do you need it like you need to eat? Do you need it like you need to exist? Or do you just kind of want it? Because you show me two people. You show me one person who's desperate and hungry. You show me another one who'd like it or wants it. You show me one person who's willing to look bad and get uncomfortable and color outside the lines and do whatever they got to do to get to their dream. And you show me another one who won't, I'll take this person every day of the week. Maybe they don't come from the perfect background. Maybe they don't have all the perfect words. Maybe they don't have all the right relationships, but they got the goodies, man. They got the one thing you got to have to win, which is hunger and desire and some heart. And I know you've heard these things before, but now I want you to be self-aware. Really, how hungry are you? What are you doing to feed your hunger? What are you doing to feed the fact that you feel like you're starving? Because the more you want something, the lack of it makes you more and more hungry. For example, if I were really hungry and I needed some food, it's one thing to want it. It's another thing, when that food's right in front of me and I'm not allowed to eat it, I become hungry. So the closer you bring what you want to you increases its hunger level. The more repetitious it is, the more you think about it, the more you bring it into your thoughts over and over and over again, the hungrier you get. That's why repetitive thought about what you want is so critical. So evaluate that. Am I as hungry as I could be? Am I as starving as I could be? Do I want it so bad I'm desperate for it? Or would I just like it? Would I hope for it? The greatest athletes, the Kobes, the Bradys, the Jordans of sports, have a way of feeding their hunger all the time and increasing it. What separates them isn't just their work ethic, isn't just their talent, although those things matter, isn't just they practice more. What separates them is they're just hungrier. They somehow find a way as they climb up the ranks and win championships to get even hungrier for more, where 99% of the athletes lose just a little bit of their edge once they get that first championship, that first pro contract, that first big amount of money, that first world championship. They just lose their hunger a little bit. And then there's the elite. They get hungrier. It feeds the beast. For some of you, have you been hungrier in the past? Let's be honest. And have you lost a little of that hunger where you're just not quite as desperate as you used to be? And so it's feeding your desperation. And the way we do that is we feed it to ourselves over and over again because it becomes something we must have. We have to have it, like we gotta eat, like we gotta breathe. Feed the hunger, feed the desperation, embrace it. Don't try to look so pretty, because this desperate state eliminates all the things that hold you back. Your fears, your worries, what you don't know, what the obstacles are, signs, haters, lack of information, lack of blah, blah, blah. It all goes away when you're hungry.
Life is a series of emotional ups and downs. You know it very well because with age comes experience and wisdom. And just as it works with emotions, it also works with people who come into our lives and are with us for years, but sometimes this does not always happen for life, and they move away from us, perhaps for a while, or maybe forever. But the objective of this video is to tell you that this is not a bad thing at all, or something that will define the destiny of your life. Because in life, you must move on. A person can never define an end for us. You should know that you need time to heal. Oftentimes, we try to run to the next thing and the next thing and get away from the problem by distracting ourselves with the next thing. And oftentimes, we try to run to the next relationship because we were hurt by the past one. But when we are hurt, we don't give ourselves time to heal, only deepen the wound even more and more. I think of it almost as a cut on your body. When you cut yourself and you keep touching it and allowing it to be exposed to danger, you slow down the healing process. But when you allow time for it to grow and heal, you find that you're better much faster. I think it's the same mentally as well. We'll probably all struggle with something in our mind and at some point in our lives, and we try to distract ourselves with things from the actual problem, but that only goes so far. But I find it in the Son of God. I just give it to God's hand. I'm bringing my pain and He brings me joy over and over, healing and being healed. Give yourself time though. Take breaks sometimes. Just sit and be alone for a while. It's a hard thing to understand, and it's a hard thing to try to process by yourself because it hurts. Like the feeling when you first get a cut and you put alcohol in it, or put something under it to clean it. It burns a little bit, but after a while, it leaves you better than you would have been without it. We must understand that everything has its cycle, and if a person has already fulfilled theirs with us, we must respect their decision and move on in life. Because nothing ends because a person is missing. Because we have the ability to be happy of our own account without asking anyone for anything. You just have to have the faith that everything will be fine in the hands of God, since He will bring you something much better in the future. And I'm not just talking about couples, but about a better well-being in your life. An important thing to do is talk, either with a friend or with someone you trust. There's nothing more healing than talking all your thoughts out of yourself and turning them into words. In this way, you will be helping yourself almost without knowing it, since by listening to you, you understand what your problem is and how you can improve. Take your time. Do things that you know you enjoy. Find new activities that you enjoy doing, since after living with the person for so long, surely you've forgotten a bit what it was like to enjoy moments of solitude. Also, let's be honest. In a world with a large number of people, the one who has abandoned us will not be the first or the last to be with us. The world is excessively large, and the same applies to people. So allow yourself to meet more people, and at least if you do not have a relationship, you will have a friend with whom you will share several memorable moments and have great talks, since not everything should always end in a relationship. Do not force yourself to have relationships to avoid being alone. You have to understand that you must first heal, in the sense that you must first overcome a problem, know how to deal with your loneliness, and get to know yourself better, and then any relationship will come, since in this way, you will attract positive people into your life, and you will avoid repeating the same problems as before. Also, don't feel like there's something you did wrong for the relationship to end, or waste your time thinking all night about the things you could have done better. Really, people can change very often, and surely that person has not abandoned you for a specific reason that you are to blame for, or for something that you have done one time, but they have done it for him or her, a personal reason. They were a couple, not a person. Therefore, two people have been responsible for the dissolution of the marriage. If the two people were responsible for maintaining the love, the two people are responsible for the fact that the shared dreams did not come true. Cheer up. To build a different life, we must learn to live in another way, enjoying life and giving thanks to all the opportunities and experiences that we have in our day-to-day. Feel excited for all the wonderful experiences and for all the incredible changes that are about to come into your life. Everything with faith, and that God will help us in the process. In this way, nothing will be against us, and everything will be fine.
Thank you again for watching our videos, and please don't forget to subscribe to your channel Motivational Vibes. Feel free to leave feedback below in the comment section. How can we improve our content? What kind of videos would you like to see? Let us know in the comments.
All of you have extraordinary capabilities. All of you. You have to decide if you are willing to do the things to put you in that category. Rich people don't sleep 8 hours a day. That's a third of your life. It ain't but 24 hours in a day. You cannot be sleep 8 hours a day. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable if you ever want to be successful.
What you should do if you want to start waking up early is start waking up early. You figure out what that time is for you, and then you start waking up at that time. Now, if you wake up and it's earlier than you normally wake up, by the end of the day, guess what? You'll be a little bit more tired, and then you can go to bed a little bit earlier. Impose discipline on your life. That's the way it works. Get out of bed, go get some. You got 24 hours in a day. The earlier you get up, the more you can take advantage of those hours. The reason I wake up at 4:30 in the morning is no one else is awake yet. So that gives me the opportunity to do things that I need to get done kind of selfishly for myself. And the big one in that category is working out. And it doesn't feel good at 4:30 when you get up, but by the time 7 o'clock rolls around and you've already worked out and you've already got some work done and you've got some time to say goodbye to your kids before they go to school, it's infinitely better than sleeping in until 6:45 and you get out of bed and now you missed your kids going to school or whatever. You're not prepared for the day. It's awful.
Whatever amount of sleep you need, you know how much you need. So you go to bed early enough so that you come awake naturally.
Wake up at the same time every day. And if you pick that time and you start waking up at the same time every day, that's very good for you. It doesn't have to be 4:30, it could be 6:30, it could be 7. I don't know what your personal schedule is, but find out a time, pick it, set it, stick to it, and maintain that schedule, and that's going to end up better for you. I recommend it's earlier. I recommend that you go to bed earlier, because what are you doing at night most of the time? Most of the time at night, you're not working on anything super productive. You're just winding down and watching stupid YouTube videos or surfing the internet, reading clickbait stories, right? Don't do that. Instead, go to sleep and then wake up early.
No one's coming to push you. No one's coming to tell you to turn the TV off. No one's coming to tell you to get out the door and exercise. The bottom line is, no one's coming. When you become 18, when you move out of the house, when you're an adult, you have to parent yourself. Unless you understand that you've got to parent yourself, you've got to push yourself, you're not going to make your dreams come true.
Take yourself out your comfort zone. Do not live in your bubble. Put some more air in your bubble. If you stay in your comfort zone, that's where you will fail. You will fail in your comfort zone. Success is not a comfortable procedure. It is a very uncomfortable thing to attempt. So you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable if you ever want to be successful.
If you don't have any discipline, you'll end up with absolutely no freedom. You'll end up being a slave to other people that boss you around. There's all kinds of problems that can occur if you don't have discipline in your life. And the more discipline you have, the more freedom you're going to have.
The Bible says, he who loves to sleep and the folding of hands, poverty will set upon you like a thief in the night. He who loves to sleep and the folding of hands, poverty will set upon you like a thief in the night.
Make a plan. Look at what you're interested in. Get disciplined about something. Allow for the possibility that you have something important to contribute to the world, and that the world would be a lesser place without that contribution. Don't be afraid of taking on responsibility. It's where you find what sustains you in your life. You can take on too much responsibility. You have to be cautious in that regard, but That's a less common problem than not taking on enough.
Now, when it does come to planning, I think the most important part of a plan, the thing that makes a plan the most effective, is its flexibility. When you do the actual operation and you come up against unexpected things, which are absolutely going to happen, you have the flexibility, you have options, you have contingency plans to deal with.
You got to have a plan. Everybody's got a dream. Everybody's got a goal. What's the plan? And your plan has got to have something I call the C5 complex. Your plan has got to be clear, concise, compelling, consistent, and committed. You've got to have a plan. And when you're trying to do something that you're truly passionate about, there is no plan B.
A lot of the things that people regard as traps are actually the means to their life. You know, often young people are afraid of commitment, for example, in the context of a romantic relationship, and because they feel that that's going to interfere with their pursuit of something more valuable. But that's just not the case. You're not going to find something more valuable in your life than a committed relationship with someone that you love, that sustains itself across time, and that in all likelihood produces children. That's life. So don't be afraid of that, or be afraid of it, but don't let that stop you from pursuing it.
When you see transition really start to happen, when you really want to transition to something, master it. There's no limits. You know, don't let the world ever put limits on you. You can do anything you want to do, but make sure if you have a vision, make sure the vision is written. You know, make sure you have something to actually chase and not just hoping and wishing and all these different things. So put your plan together and then work the plan. Don't work somebody else's plan, right? That's one thing about the league. I love the league, but the league is somebody else's brand, right? You have to create your own brand yourself.
Come up with a good plan. Don't come up with a perfect plan that takes you 2 weeks to come up with. That's not going to help. That's a good plan, violently executed now, is better than a perfect plan executed next week. Pay attention. Watch how it's unfolding. Don't put the blinders on, and you've got your plan. Now we're going to go, and we're not going to look around anymore. We're just going to follow the plan. No. You have to be observant. You have to observe when you decide to act the whole time. You can't just come up with a plan and stay on that track, because when you come up with a fast plan, you're not going to have thought about every single detail.
Your future is in your hands. You know what that means? You got to work on your mind. Fortify yourself. You know what that means? You got to upgrade, level up your skill set. You know what that means? That means you want to be in a community of collaborative, achievement-driven, supported relationships that's going in your direction. You're supposed to evolve, not be the same way. We've been trained to be who we were not to be. And as a result, most of us are living a misplaced life. A lot of people have made the decision to give up. A lot of people have made the decision to wait for a stimulus check. They don't require much stipulation. A lot of people have made the decision that I can't make it. A lot of people have made the decision that this is too painful, this is too much. No. A lot of people have thrown in the towel. It's a new day. And it's a new day, it's got to be a new you. You got to be willing to transform yourself.
So, be flexible, but stick to the plan, but be ready to adjust, but stick to the plan. And that's totally contradictory, and I know that, and I apologize, but that is what leadership is. Leadership is balancing those dichotomies.
I've told people to learn to use a schedule. And people often hate schedules because they act as their own tyrants, right? They say, well, you have to do this unpleasant thing, and then here's another unpleasant thing you have to do. And you do that for about 3 days, and you think, to hell with this, I'm not doing that, and you fall off the wagon. That isn't what you're supposed to do with a schedule. You're supposed to use it to design the days that you would like to have if you were taking care of yourself. And so you got to treat yourself like a good boss would treat a valued employee, and not like a tyrant would treat a slave. because the slave will rebel. And, you know, people say, well, I don't follow through on my plans. It's like, well, A, they're probably not very well formulated. And maybe you're doing them because of an external moral obligation, something not really your plans, right? And B, you're acting like a tyrant and a slave. And that's a bad relationship to have with yourself.
You've accepted that where you are is where you're going to be. You've already lost. And there's no power in that. There's no power in it. That's like staying right here. You're not popping the clutch. You're not going forward. You made a choice to just stay here. And that's your responsibility. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying there are challenges, problems, obstacles, issues, fears. But when you quit right here, you're right. This is where you're going to be.
Growth is not an automatic process. If you're going to grow, you're going to have to do so intentionally. And highly successful people, they continually have a thirst for knowledge. They continually ask questions. The secret of your success is determined by your daily agenda. The secret of my success is determined by what I do today. I believe that so much that a few years ago I wrote a book called Today Matters. Basically in that book I talk about the fact that we over-exaggerate yesterday, we overestimate tomorrow, and we underestimate today.
If you do not have it written down, your chances of it happening is reduced drastically because it's a principle of success. Write the vision and make it plain so that he who reads it will run to it. And even though it tarry, wait for it, for surely it will come at an appointed time. See, my first vision board I wrote when I was 10. I didn't know it was a vision board. The lady asked me what I wanted to be when I grow up. I wrote I want to be on TV. I wrote it at 10. I kept that paper till I was 27. I read it. I flunked out of school. I'm on my third marriage. I lost everything twice. I've been living in a car for 3 years. But I kept reading my paper. Guess what? I'm TV star. I'm on TV. This is how this works. Now, I wrote it at 10. But surely it will come at an appointed time. I did not get on TV till I was 38.
We got to be more determined and stronger and be willing to do whatever it takes to live our dreams and create a future for our children. You got to be stronger than the forces working against you. Can't take any breaks. No. Absolutely not. This is a new way of being. This is different. And the secret is to maintain commitment through all the frustrations, through all the disappointments, through all the setbacks that we will experience, and working to bring about change. That's how change comes about. People. You're not a witness. You're a participant. You want to be actively engaged in life. Harvey's man was right. We should be ashamed to die until we've made some major contribution to humankind with our voice, with our story, with our energy, with our efforts, with our intelligence, with our abilities, with our dreams.
Write everything you want on a piece of paper. Everything. I don't care. Use your wildest imagination. If you can think it, you can achieve it. Write it on a piece of paper. Read it every morning and every night. Come back here 1 year from today and see how much of that stuff then came true. That's all successful people have. If it's not written, you reduce your chances greatly of it ever occurring.